Hi, everyone. We're here with Khalid Mirza with us.
And she actually took your hand out and she caned me, okay? Because that's St. Anthony's High School believes in spare the rod and spoil the child, okay? So that is the Irish brothers, Irish missionaries, they have that view. So it's the whole of my childhood and during my teenage years and right up to say like the age of 20, even beyond, this was a preoccupation with me, which is why when you say from speech, I had to conquer this to do other things well. I mean, I was a lot comfort in London when I was in London for 7 years. Well, you know, the fact is that when you in the Royal Academy of whatever it is of dramatic arts, first teach you to stammer before they teach you elocution, because they think it gives you better speech. So, and you know, I was also told things like Sophocles, the greatest orator amongst the Greeks, used to stammer, and he would put a pebble on his mouth and speak to the waves. Okay, so I did all sorts of things, but then if you look at my education, okay, it's if you want to hear the story of my life, I mean, if that's what you intend to do, then I started off in the convent of Jesus and Mary in the baby class, if you like, or my sisters were there. Both of them older than me, so they were studying there. So I was put in school there. Then after a few months there, when they said it's too much to have a boy here, so I was asked to find another place. My parents were asked to. So then I went to something called the Toddlers Academy, okay, in Lahore, and which is a very famous institution. It's still there. Mrs. Asad Alam, who was my teacher, owns it now. At that time, she was a teacher with Auntie Asghari, Mrs. Manzoor Qadir, who was running the school. But so I was there for about a year or so, and then I went on to Cathedral School. Okay, I was there a couple of years, and then to St. Anthony's, from where I did my metric, and then I went to FC College, and then to Haley College of Commerce. So it's a pretty Islamic education, if you like, all these missionaries and so on, with which I was educated. Often in class as a professor, I quote from the Bible quite a lot, just because of my missionary schooling. So that's what was there. And then I joined the fancy group of companies in Lahore after doing my MCOM, and was there for a couple of years. They promised to send me to England. I joined a merchant bank in London. Same story. The chartered account, you know, the blue-eyed people that wanted, given all the good jobs. So I was struggling there too. Then, as it happened, and there was an advertisement in the newspapers for a position in the capital markets department of IFC, the International Finance Corporation in London. So Washington. So I applied, and God was kind to me. Out of about 600 or 700 candidates, I was amongst the two selected. I'm still wondering why. But nonetheless, I was taken, and I went there, and again, the chartered accountants were the people that everybody looked for and wanted in their divisions. And as it happened, slowly but steadily, I mean, like a tortoise, I was moving ahead, and a stage came when I became a division chief, and I had chartered accountants working for me. Then I was sent as a mission leader many times, and there were lots of senior chartered accountants working for me. And then came another stage, and I became IFC chief of mission in Istanbul, and then again in Bangkok. Each time I had chartered accountants working for me. So and then, as luck would have it, the government of Pakistan invited me to chair the Security and Exchange Commission, okay? And I came over, and there on the first day, there was an invitation lying on my table, and that was from the Institute of Chartered Accountants in Pakistan, wanting me to distribute some awards or some prizes or the other. Now I asked my assistant that why are they inviting me? He says, well, don't you know, you are the regulator of the chartered accountants profession. I said, really? He said, yes, that is one of your functions, and you are a member of their council, which came as a big shock. And then, as chairman of the Security and Exchange Commission, there was many occasions in which, with the stroke of a pen, I could have made or marred the career of a chartered accountant. But then I was asked in one of my old college, one of the questions put to me was, what would you have done, whatever you have done, but what would you rather be? And my answer was, I'd rather be a chartered accountant. Okay. So that's the.
So when you went and said that you would rather be a chartered accountant, sir, was that a lifelong dream, or was that something you stumbled into? Because we had you as a child just trying to conquer the...
Even then, I was asked this question, and I said, yes, I'd rather be a chartered accountant. Now, this is one cut of my life, okay? I put it very briefly. But the other cut is actually a little bit more interesting, which is that, I was in St. Anthony's High School, as I told you. The top school in Lahore was 8. I wasn't there. I was in the number 2 school, which was St. Anthony's. Went to college. The top college in Pakistan was Government College Lahore. Okay, I was in number 2, the FC College. Then, people go into all sorts of professions. In fact, I was being pushed into the medical profession. I didn't make it to the medical college because my results were not that good. But so, instead of becoming either a doctor or an engineer or one of these sophisticated elite things that people were doing in those days, okay, I went into number 2, which is Haley College, which is studying of commerce, okay, right? From Haley College, I was being put in a business firm, in a business group. The top groups in those days, the Ardenjis, the Sehgals, the Dawoods, your family, they were the top in those days. Even now, they are the top, okay, but I joined the number 2, which is the fancies, the equated with the Velikas, the Habibs, that. Okay. And then when I started looking to go abroad to work, because I was making a career in finance, so I looked at England to go to England, and there, of course, the top merchant banks were, Kleinwort Benson, Warburgs, Lazards, Arthur, this, what is this called? This Robert Fleming.
And what year was this, sir? When you went to England, what year?
This is 19. I went to England in 1976. Yeah, that's okay. And right, and then I joined the number 2 amongst the number 2 investments banks, the Credit and Finance Corporation. So not the top one. It was amongst the number 2, not the third category, but the middle. And then from there, it was my dream to go and work in Washington in international financial institutions. Of course, the top one there is the IMF. I didn't get there. I got into the World Bank Group, which is number 2. Within the World Bank Group, IRD is and IFC is number 2. That's where I went, to IFC. Within IFC, top department is the investment department, and I joined the number 2, which is the capital markets department. And then I was in IFC for about 20 years almost. And then when I was called to Pakistan to become a regulator because I had had regulatory experience working in IFC. I was called to become the top regulator in Pakistan, you know, is the State Bank of Pakistan. But I am number 2, which is the Securities and Exchange. The story in life has been going up by slowly and steadily by being number 2, never at the top, never at the best institute. And I was interviewed. My second interview was in the bar. Well, the first interview was in London. It was by somebody called Antoine Wanakmal, who is the creator of the term emerging markets. And when I was talking to him about capital markets, okay, particularly the Pakistani market, he said, "Do you mind if I take notes?" I said, "Please go ahead." So then I asked him, I said, "Why are you taking these copious notes at whatever I say? I've never been to an interview where people take notes of what you..." He said, "Because what you're saying is very interesting and I'm writing a book on the markets and I would like to use, do you mind if I use something of what you said?" Okay. I said, "No, good. Now, that's for my first." The second interview where a chap called Rudy Vanderbilt, who's died, he's also a Dutch person. He interviewed me in the bar of the Grosvenor Hotel in London, okay, while he was having whiskey and so I was having my, what was it? It was one of these, okay. So he was interested. He told me very plainly, he said, "Listen, we find you to be very good," okay, because Antoine has interviewed you and finds very good, okay, right? Disqualifications. He says, number 1, he said, Pakistani is there. Number 2, he said that you don't have any national degree. Degree that you have is recognized. This M from Harvard University, recognized in the World Bank. 3, investment bank, okay, or a merchant bank, has a connection with one, the Bank of America, which is fine, the other with the BCI group, the other, your parents are BCCI, and we don't like the BCCI group, okay? It was not in trouble, it was just those upstartish kind of thing. But at least that's what it, you know. At that time, BCCI had not got into any trouble, but he said, "We don't like BCCI." So there were 3 qualifications. So I said, well, that's the end of the story. Okay. But then they invited me to come to Washington, and then so I joined them. But that's, so that is what I'm saying is, it's, yes, I have joined good institutions and I worked in good institutions, but never at the top. I could have done better. I could have done better. But you see, once okay. Okay, let's look at me as the question which you asked was me 360 degrees financial sector. Okay, during this career of mine, I have been a security analyst. Okay, I have worked I've done underwriting of stocks and share bonds. Okay, I have been a portfolio manager. Okay, I have also managed proprietary accounts of my the institution I was working in. Okay, I have, if you like, advised governments and developed financial sectors in about 20 countries. Okay, right, and I worked in about 6 countries for doing all that, and then I became a regulator of the finance, which I became a competition enforcer when I chaired the Commission of Pakistan. Okay, later, okay, and then I'm on the policy board of the ACCP, which I have. So I've seen the financial sector 360 degrees all around. The one thing I haven't done, okay, I haven't become a priest in the financial sector. I mean, that I haven't done. I've taught financial markets. I've done everything, but this part I have done. Okay, so that is the only thing that is the only issue. In the 360 degrees, about 10 degrees are missing. So probably hope to make it up when I have tried 4 times. Okay, each time I become busier. So, but this little bit of being a priest in the financial sector, I have not become. When I might, and if I do, then I'll let you know. Okay. What are the questions?
You talked earlier about conquering your stammer and how important it was for you to conquer it. Was that internal, that ambition, or was it something your parents? The other day you showed me a great picture of your father who looked like Marlon Brando, and you were...
Was one. But on the other hand, I personally felt that I was handicapped. Okay. And there was the doctor, his name was Dr. Deek in Scotch Corner in Lahore. I was shown to him for the stammer. He was a speech therapist also. Then he told, well, the nerves at the top of your neck, they go like that. They cross in the medulla. He said they actually haven't crossed. They've gone like that. They've gone straight through. So you have this problem. And he told me that, you will probably, if you speak slowly in a more staccato manner, you're likely to get rid of it. You will always stammer, he says. When you try to make love to a girl, you will always stammer. Okay. That's a very interesting thing which he said when I was like 10 or 12. Okay. So, but it stuck in my mind. Okay. And I found that when I was, young girls like to have somebody who's brash, who's a little bit of a he-man. And here I'm a stuttering, stammering kind of person. Oh, no. Although I did my best to be coming and so on, but everybody they kind of shunned me. It was personally driven also. And then as I told you, one of my teachers punished me for no fault of mine, but because of stammer. So all these things add up. And the fact is, I might tell you something which you will find very interesting. In Punjab University, they have a contest called the Ruchram Sani Declamation Contest. Okay. And they still have it. When I went to that contest, it was the 70th and the 7th, recall correctly. And each time I speech and King George VI, practice it, rehearse it before a mirror, in the intonation, everything, and then go. And I did college debating. I was a college debater. I was the leader of the house in my college for 4 years. Okay, and it's very interesting that when I got, and even in dramatics, that when I was on the stage, I didn't stammer. When I came in ordinary conversation, yes, I did stammer. Okay, so I did what I did, and I think it's one of those things.
If people are watching who are joining great institutions, whether they be the World Bank or multinationals or any very competitive A-list institution, how should they go about distinguishing themselves? And should they strategically be thinking about distinguishing themselves, or how did you go about that, making yourself valuable and special in those organizations?
Let me be very clear about this. First of all, my ambition, if you like, joining any of these institutions, which I just mentioned to you, whether it was the one in London, the one in Washington, was to hold a job. This was no more than that. Okay? Now, it so happened that we do a good job, or a reasonable job, then time you do get picked up, you do. So remaining there, that's my, if you like, ambition, very modest, but that's what it was. Okay, and then I came here as the chairman, for example, or in the competition. Okay, I was doing a job. Okay, it so happened that compared to the other regulators in the world, you in developing world, okay, somehow without my knowing, I was recognized. So much so that in IOSCO, which is the International Organization of Securities Commissions, okay, I was elected without my asking, without fighting for election, as chairman of the Financial Intermediaries Committee, okay, for the developing countries. And it's very interesting. The Indian chap over there was going all over the place campaigning for himself, okay? And there was another candidate from Africa or somewhere, I forget now. And when the election took place, it was, open. There were like 70 or 80 developing countries there wanting to elect different. So somebody proposed this Indian guy, somebody seconded this Indian guy. Then there was this, I think, head of the Czech Commission, this lady. She got up and she proposed my name. Now, the moment she proposed my name, there were 3 people that stood up and seconded it. And then suddenly I found the whole audience heading up and saying that we want him to be the chair. And the Indian actually withdrew in my favor. Okay? For being humble, I'm not being bad at all. I'm telling you very honestly that the capability is limited. The only thing is, as I told you, just the dogged determination to at least hold on to what you have. Okay, and that's what kept me going, and that's where to tell you the truth, I'll be very honest here with you, that there were people in Pakistan that literally hated me. There were people within the commission that had a problem with me. The government had a serious problem with me. The capital markets players had a problem. They went on strike against me. They had a demonstration against me with placards out saying, American imperialist, go home, destroyer of the capital market, World Bank stooge, all kinds of. And then the same people who were there, who said all that about me, okay, were the ones that came to me and said, what you have done for the capital market, we have earned so much money out of it that we couldn't even imagine. I'll give you an example. This business of automating the stock exchange. Okay, when we did it, they cut the wires. Okay, because they didn't want to. Okay, then corporate stock brokerage houses. Okay, the late Firozuddin Qasim, who I have a very high respect for, very high regard for, famous stockbroker, family of stockbrokers. He said, over my dead body that I will allow these corporate stock brokerage houses. And then his sons have actually set up corporate stock brokerage houses. Okay, and then this business of CDC, this national clearing, okay, this business of when I used to have trades in the Pakistan stock market, Monday through Friday, and the settlement would take place on Wednesday. I introduced, against stiff opposition from everyone in the capital market, T+2, okay, it was anathema. Introducing futures in this market was considered totally out, and yet now they say, oh well, we make a lot of money out of it, which is fine. Okay, and, then I have very strong views. For example, most people in drawing rooms in Sindh Club, which you're a member, and in other places in the government of Pakistan and elsewhere, they hate the word badla. They don't like badla. It's kind of associated with hawala. It's basically simply a repo, a contango. That's what it is. Okay, right? And I was all for it because this was a homegrown financing system which, although it had unsavory origins, but then I had regulated it. I had put it on within a regulatory frame, and it was actually working. Okay. Previously, any incident in the market, any disturbance in the market, and they, to some extent, they were right. But after the various regulatory, which I had done with respect to the if you like, systemic sting had been removed from Badla. Later on, what they did after I left was they made it so onerous, so hard that Badla got finished. And now you have a problem because it doesn't have financing. It doesn't have market financing. And at one stage, our market was the envy of Southeast Asia because of the financing that was available here. So, but these things which I'm telling you about were not things which I, because I was wanting any particular action or something like that, or I had an aim that I've got to somewhere. It was just I was doing a job, simple. It so happened by doing the job, I were a few toes and stamped over a few tails, and people got annoyed and they snapped at me, which is fine, part of the game, which happens to you time if you do a good job, a reasonable job. Similarly, in the competition commission, okay, the aim of everyone was either to dilute the commission or to dilute the law. And here I was standing against both, okay, and acting against the cartelists, acting against people who abuse their dominance. It's very interesting. The same people whom you act against for cartelization themselves want protection from other cartelists. It's a very interesting thing, because basically what the Competition Commission does is it supports the market. It supports the operations of any market. A market economy can't work unless you have a proper antitrust norms in place. Okay, and that's what I was doing. The result was that globally, they said there are 3 rookies, antitrust rookies in the developing world. Competition Commission of Pakistan was number 1. Egypt was number 2. Mauritius was number 3. So much so that when they had this IOSCO meeting, I believe it was the one in Istanbul, in which they actually invited Pakistan, that's me, to be one of the observers of the OECD club. We were 6 or 7 countries that were invited. I was one of them. Okay, and I was told by Bill Kavachich, the head of the US, the all-time guru of antitrust. He said that all of us agreed on that you have got to come there. Then when the OECD, they have every year a big jamboree on this thing, competition. I was invited to preside over an all-day session, okay, on this, what is it called, this corruption in public procurement. And remember when I was asked by this lady who told me that you're right, I said, I don't know why. Do you know that we are amongst the most corrupt countries in the world? According to transparency. He says, no, we are not inviting you because of your country, your commission. We are inviting you because you are a persona institute. Second, insofar as the first one is concerned, I say, well, I must have done something good. Okay. And regarding the second one, it's again the same. I must have done something good. Otherwise they wouldn't be protesting. Both sides, it's exactly the same reaction. Okay.
So even when there's protests, you're like, I must have done something good.
I can tell you that there was a meeting in the State Bank of Pakistan. Ishrat was then the governor, and he was presiding. And this was regarding Badla, actually. And he was all against Badla. And the stockbrokers were being put against the wall against this. I stood up for them as chairman of this. I said, this is a good instrument. And I explained the position. And eventually the state bank people backed down on it. Otherwise, they were going to put all kinds of restrictions. Well, they were going to make it difficult, not that they could restrict it. So they backed down. This Ferozuddin Qasim, whom I just spoke to you about, who was very against all these regulatory measures, which I was taking, actually had a big party in my favor in the boat club, okay, and about 500 people over there, in the lawn outside the boat club over there, okay, and he had this, in which he said that, well, what he has done is really remarkable for us. And then he asked me to speak, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't speak. He said, why? I said, I'm likely to stammer, that's why. He said, okay, so, right. What were the other questions?
Yes. So, there were three. Yes. So another question is, share the story of how you got the call to return to Pakistan and set up the SECP. We even talk about in those days, it was under a different name and you were in a tiny room. Then you got funding, I believe, from ADB. Talk about like how that whole journey, because you left DC.
The SECP, it was, I think, Mr. Babar Ali who called me, that looking for you. Then he said, please come over, I want to see you. Okay. So, no, back up. Before that, Shaukat Aziz had called me when I was in Karachi, going to Bangkok and returning to Bangkok after a wedding here. I was going back, and he said, we want you to come and share this. And I was in two minds, frankly. I went back, heard nothing from them. And after some time, I got this. He called me over. So I went over and I met them. And he offered me the job straight away without any questions. But he said, I want you to go. And this was the early days of the Musharraf government. So it's a military government. He said, well, you have to go with some people in the GHQ. Okay. So I said, okay, fine. So I went there. There was General Lees, who was the General Chief of Staff. And he was sitting there along with 4 or 5 rooms when I met. I don't want to tell you the full story of into the GHQ, but let's go to the point. And he said, well, I told him, listen, that I have worked years in India, as you know that. Otherwise, you will find out later. And I know everybody in the financial sector in India. I've made major contributions to the development of the financial sector in India. I know all the top brass there in the financial sector. Okay, I know them all. The top guys, Deepak, or there's Nadkani, or whoever it is. I know them. So I want you to know that you might not want me because of that reason. And he said, no, which family do you come from? He said, I come from an ordinary middle-class family. We are basically, employed people. There's nothing about us that is true. My father was in a reasonable position. He was the registrar of the Supreme Court for many years. So that's there. You have, but then he said, what family members do you have now in Pakistan? I said, well, I have 2 sisters, and both of them are teachers. Both of them, okay. And the teacher or the husband of one of them is also a teacher. And the elder one, he was a teacher, but now he's a lateral entrant in government service. So then he said, okay, we've just had a Supreme Court judgment that wants us to Islamize. What would you do if you were at our place? I said, you've just taken over, okay? The weight of public opinion is in your favor. Everything is there going for you, okay? If I was in your place, there'd be 2 things I would do, okay? One of them, I'm afraid you will not do, because I'm not sure whether despite being military people, you have the guts. And the other is what you would do. The ones that would not do is I would send the Supreme Court and all the high courts packing. Okay, I put in place fresh courts and new court. I'd give them a reference on this matter and get them to adjudicate in favor of conventional financing alongside Islamic financing, as in the case of Malaysia. Okay, but I said, I don't think you will do that. What you will do and can do is that you set up a commission. The commission will look at the entire financial instruments and devise, catching your nose the other way, of how to fit in conventional financing in Islamic modes. Okay, which is basic. I mean, it's the same thing. Only thing is you give a funny Arabic name to it, and it's otherwise exactly the same thing. Okay, so you fit in this so-called usurious Islamic financing which you have. You put in conventional, you do it in a way, or you construct it in a way that it becomes acceptable. I know IF is invested in mudarris. Okay, so we can do it. It's not that we can't do it. And you people like me who will, and others, and lots of others who are even better, who will be able to provide the how-to. It's a second solution, but that's what I would. Okay, so this is. She says, "Oh, really? Would you do that?" Yes. This is whatever. So I came away from that meeting thinking that I have lost it, because what I told them was things military people don't like to hear. They don't have hearts. Military people would like to hear that this is what I want. But by the time I came to Shaukat Aziz, the finance minister, he said, "Well, they are asking one question, that are you an Ahmadi?" I said, "Well, I don't want to answer that question, whether I'm an Ahmadi or not. Frankly, I find it abhorrent." He said, "Yes, I agree with you, but I want you to give me a straight answer." I said, "Straight answer is I'm not. But frankly, I don't like answering that."
So many people need your time. So how do you, and also you have LUMS, plus you have boards.
That is something I'm very poor at. I'm very poor at that. It's prioritizing of time. To be very honest with you, take today as an example. Okay, I got up in the morning, said my prayers, went for my walk, etc., etc. Then I had a breakfast meeting. After that, I had 3 meetings in the morning, 2 in the afternoon. I come here. I had this Zoom call because of this WAPTA's financing with JP Morgan and others. Okay, so that call took. Then I have this call talking to you, and the day hasn't finished because I have a dinner meeting just after your call.
Because you're such a role model. You've done so much for the nation. You've done so much not only for regulation, but also a pillar of integrity, a role model in every which way. We absolutely loved having you on. And thank you so much for being here, and have a brilliant rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
So that was our TU Talk with the iconic Khalid Mirza. As you know, a man so modest and humble about his achievements and his journey, but a journey that truly inspires us all, and with a precision of his integrity that has really served as an example. So thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.